Hi, I'm Joel Murphy from HoboTrashcan.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Well, I was curious as a place to start. There's a sort of a discussion of this in the film, but I just wanted to hear you talk about it. Of what was the kind of film that you didn't want to make about Ireland?
I guess as working class lads, we connected very early on over the fact that often kind of young guys wearing tracksuits who are into street culture, tends to be represented on screen, be that films, be that TV, as being idiots, right? Inept criminals, as being, the joke's on them, right? And that was something that we kind of went, it doesn't have to be like that. You can wear a tracksuit and you can kind of be up to mischief, but you can also be politically engaged. You can be erudite. You can be witty. And we just wanted to represent really who the band are, right? They're smart guys. And, we just wanted to make it not feel as if they were the butt of the joke and just play it for laughs.
And then how hard was it to get them on board with the film and then just involved in the process of telling the story?
Well, look, it's obviously when someone approaches you, they were a local Belfast band back in 2019. And when someone approaches you and goes, hey, I want to make a feature film about you and I want you to be in it, you kind of go, sure, of course you do. And, so it took a little bit of a while to win them round to that. And that basically, when I say win them round, buying them lots of pints of Guinness tends to do it. And there was quite a lot of drinking involved in this process. But once they're on board, they threw themselves into it. And I think that they always say, it's like, once we'd agreed we were going to do it, we realized there was a massive risk for us. If it wasn't good, right, then it would have a massive impact on our music career because we'd have a movie that sucks kind of about us sitting there. And it's like, it be a bit, so they were like, we have to do everything that we can to now make sure that this film's going to be good. And it was a very collaborative process from day one. I was very conscious about not wanting to make it feel like I'd stepped in and taken their story, right? And that was partly out of respect for them, but it was also because, the best people almost to help tell the Kneecap story is obviously Kneecap, right? And so to keep them involved at every stage was a no-brainer.
So how many ideas sounded good over those pints of Guinness? And then in the next morning, you looked at those notes.
we could have had about 3 films, I think, over the amount of sort of ideas. I think that after the first 2 or 3 pints of Guinness, there's some good ideas. By pint 10, it tends to sort of fall off a bit of a cliff. And we end up just shouting over each other. And look, it was a very fun writing process, shall we say? And, it was for me, I think there's obviously the process. I wrote the whole script in English and then we translated it into the Irish. And that was kind of an interesting process because they don't speak book Irish. They have their own sort of patois, if you like, at times that doesn't really, it's hard to translate it across. And the Irish language is completely different structurally than the English language. So even you have things where you're trying to tell jokes that rely on certain words coming at the end of a sentence. When you translate it, the jokes don't work anymore. And so there was all sorts of kind of issues to do with that became quite thorny to deal with. And that was an unexpected problem we had, but it all worked out in the end.
I'm curious too, ideologically, you as a filmmaker and them as a band, and obviously, as you said, very concerned about how they'll come across. What were the sort of battles or were there sticking points with things that you had to fight for from a storytelling point of view, or things that they had to fight for just representing themselves? Were there any kind of big issues?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we ever had any big sort of fallings out about things. I think that they got on board very early on that this wasn't going to be a 2-hour puff piece for Kneecap or a 2-hour music video for them. Do you know what I mean? That they had to be open to the fact that it wouldn't all be positive, and also that they would have to be emotionally available to kind of, I suppose Kneecap in a way, the personas you see walk onto stage are kind of 2D caricatures. But the movie was never going to work if they weren't prepared to make themselves 3D human beings on screen. And, there's, as much as there's a lot of laughs in the film, there's a lot of emotional things in there too that are very much based on their real life. And I think people sometimes underestimate how much vulnerability and bravery it takes to put yourself up on screen like that for an audience to judge and to judge your life. And they did that. And it was tough for them at times to do that. But it's a testament to them as artists that they're prepared to go there. And I think the results are up there for everyone to see.
I'm curious too, you kind of hinted at it in the press notes for the film. But also you talked about them as actors, like preparing themselves and kind of hinted that it was maybe a difficult process. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that as well, of just them preparing to play themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I spent, a couple of years trying to kind of raise the money for the film. And, when you're kind of going in there pitching a film and people say, we love the script, but can they act? And you go, yeah, of course they can act. Yeah, they can act. But I didn't really have an idea. I was just like, yeah, well, you say what you're going to say and we'll work it out later. And finally, when the film got funded and we actually got into a room to actually kind of run some lines, it became quickly apparent that there was work to be done, right, in terms of getting them to a place. And it wasn't, I think everyone can act. But it's just a matter of, do you have the tools to know what it is to actually act, right? Do you have the toolbox there? And I think once they had those tools to understand that, it's very different to being on stage, that when you've got a camera this close to your face, and it's about keeping that energy internalized, but to keep that energy there. Don't lose the energy, but you just need to internalize it and understand about being present. That was a big thing, and being in the moment and listening. And I think, surrounding them with really good actors was a key part of it too. I think that, good actors give a lot. They give you something great to react to. And conversely, bad actors give you nothing it's hard to have a good scene if one of the actors isn't very good. And so, the cast that surrounded the boys, Michael Fassbender, Simone Kirby, they really, really gave a huge amount and raised everyone's game.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. Like, all of the performances are phenomenal, and the band especially. Like, I thought they all were great in it. Like, it's very moving. Do you think it's kind of like changed the perception of them? I know that they're kind of maybe, we're still up and coming, but like, have you seen it alter how people are looking at them?
Look, I mean, we were walking through the streets of New York yesterday, and there must have been half a dozen people over the course of the day who came up and were like, hey, Kneecap. And they used to getting that in Ireland. But, we were all a bit like, oh, that's kind of crazy. We went into a bar and they're on the jukebox, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of, I'm the least musical person in the world, and I'll never be in a band, but the experience I've had kind of being adjacent to Kneecap for 5-6 years and kind of being their friend and being on that journey with them, with the film, has been a great pleasure, quite aside from the film itself. And they're still the same guys who they've always been, and one of the most endearing things about them is they don't chase fame. They're not really interested in that whole thing. They just like to have a bit of crack and fun, that is. Sometimes we say that, have some crack here, and
it's different in New York.
People start laughing, but they just want to have fun and enjoy themselves and enjoy the moment they're having.
Do you think you'll keep collaborating with them, or is this time for you to go a separate way?
Look, we're saying where we're going our separate ways, whether that's working professionally together again or just hanging out. They're my friends first and foremost. Look, we've had some offers to do, some Kneecap related things. I don't think it'd be something that the next thing I'll do will be that. I think that, sometimes there's a pressure, a temptation to sort of do something that's successful and to kind of keep doing that. I think that you risk, in a way, kind of maybe kind of sullying what you've already done. Do you know what I mean? If it's always going to be judged against the thing that's already exists. And I think that there'll come a time that maybe we'll sit down and maybe do a Kneecap 2, Kneecap all hooked up to IV rehab or something, in 20 years time. But, we're no rush, but, certainly, there's a lot more stories in Ireland, in Belfast to be told. And I love the Irish film scene, the Irish film community, and I'm very proud to be part of it.
Well, great. That sounds great. Thank you so much for doing it. I really loved the film. I appreciated talking to you. And I would love to talk to you again for Kneecap 2, the fall of Kneecap.
Absolutely. I'm there.
All right. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Yeah, take care.